Okay, can you hear me? She just did, I think. I hope.
It sounds like
Okay. Alright, good morning.
Morning.
As you can probably tell, I am not Tim. I'm starting to feel like we need to, I don't know, time with Lauren just doesn't seem to have a good ring to it like Timmy time does. As he's picking his cuticles.
I don't think it's so.
Lauren time, I know, see?
Yeah, it's on.
I usually don't find out though that I'm doing Timmy time until the last minute, I guess. Okay, so we are in our book, Multiply by Francis Chan. We're in part 4, chapter 8. It's called The Kingdom of God. And I apologize because I've got allergies. Tim's got a head cold. We're just loving life, I guess, this morning.
Passing around the love.
We are. Sharing is caring, they say.
It started with you.
I have allergies. What's your excuse?
Whatever you shared.
I don't think that, but okay. Okay, so finally, after years of Israel's sin and struggling in the desert, God marched his people into the promised land. Israel witnessed God's unmatched power firsthand as their army consistently destroyed enemies that were far bigger and much better armed. At this point in the story, you would think that we would see Israel thriving, rejoicing in God's power, enjoying God's presence, walking in his ways, and living happily ever after. But tragically, that is not how the story goes. Whereas the book of Joshua records God's faithfulness in delivering the promised land to Israel, the book of Judges records Israel's unfaithfulness and refusal to live as God intended. Judges feels like a roller coaster. Israel falls into sin and apathy. God raises up a leader to deliver them. The people once again acknowledge God. Israel again falls into sin and apathy. God again raises up a leader to deliver them, and on it goes. But Israel entered a more hopeful period as Samuel came on the scene. Samuel was a prophet of God and the last of the judges. With Samuel, Israel received a godly leader who faithfully delivered God's word to the people. It was during this time that Israel became a monarchy. But to understand the significance of this shift, we have to look back to the beginning once again. The King of Creation. Maybe you have never thought about the creation account this way, but Genesis 1 and 2 present God as the King of Creation. This king is so powerful and his word is so authoritative that he only has to speak to call things into existence. Genesis 1 and 2 depict the king creating a realm over which he will rule. In the Garden of Eden, everything functioned in perfect harmony. Everything operated in perfect submission to the king's rule. In the first pages of the Bible, we find a beautiful picture of what the world looks like when everyone and everything joyfully embraces the king's reign. Though we often see human beings rejecting God's authority and trying to establish their own, God originally created humanity to rule on his behalf. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. And God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." The picture we are given here is of God, the absolute ruler over creation, delegating his authority to mankind. We were created to mediate God's gracious rule to every part of his creation. Humanity was made to function under God's kingship. But when Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit, they abused their freedom and rejected God's kingship. With this simple act, God's rule on earth was challenged, and Adam and Eve chose to follow the serpent, Satan. This refusal is so significant that Satan is now referred to as the ruler of this world. John 12:31. The reality in which we now live and would have seemed inconceivable to Adam and Eve before the fall. Could God's kingship really be disputed in the world he created? Would humanity really reject God's reign and live in defiance? As strange as it would have sounded before the fall, this is the struggle we experience every day of our lives. Take a minute to think about what you learned about God by reading Genesis 1 and 2. How is God's kingship established and displayed in the creation account? Who here has not read Genesis 1 and 2? Okay. So, because we all have, do we need a refresher? Everybody?
No.
Okay. So in those first two chapters, how is God's kingship established and displayed in the creation account? I see the wheels turning, but is the hamster dead? So for me, I'm always amazed at how he literally thought of everything. When he first created everything, he thought of everything. It worked, it flowed, it went together. There was not, I like to think that we didn't have gnats. Because I feel like if it was annoying or if it bothered Adam and Eve, he would talk about that, but they weren't annoying. They didn't have they didn't have no Sims. I mean, I've lived in Georgia for almost 15 years, and I could do without all the above. Every one of them. And the fact that he spoke it into being, and he thought of everything. He knew how we were going to be, and the things we were going to need. And he made all those things. He made stuff that we could eat, stuff we could drink. It was perfect. We didn't have to.
It is amazing, a lot of it too, like a woman giving birth. How can that happen?
I did it twice, and I still can't tell you, Teresa.
And then you like forget how it happened, like based how it's been described to me now, but you don't.
Well, and I know it was painful, but you can't. The pain is not. You can't remember
As
the.
soon as you hold the baby in your arms, that pain is just.
It's gone.
You thin air.
And the fact that he thought of that, because he knew. I can tell you right now, if that's all I could focus on was that pain, we'd had one and stopped at one, and maybe not have had as much headache after just the one.
Well, wasn't the second one the Hush Bunch kid?
We're not gonna talk about that child of mine. But it just amazes how he thought about that. Okay, so the true king of Israel. We get another powerful picture of God's kingship when he led his people out of slavery in the Exodus. Through the 10 plagues, God showed that he was the supreme ruler of this world. He entered the dominion of Pharaoh and Egypt's God and asserted his ultimate authority. By defeating the false gods of Egypt and leading his people victoriously out of slavery, God demonstrated that he was the true king of Israel and of the whole earth. The covenant that God made with his people at Mount Sinai was an expression of his kingship. This type of covenant, where the conquering king would establish terms of how his people would relate to him, was common for nations at the time. We can see this clearly in Exodus 19, 5-6. Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all peoples. For all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. God was the king, and Israel was his kingdom. The tabernacle and the temple were dwelling places for the king. They were his palaces. Remember that the Ark of the Covenant, where God's presence dwelled, was the centerpiece of the tabernacle and the temple. The Bible actually refers to the Ark as the footstool of God's throne. 1 Chronicles 28 through 2 and Psalms 132 verse 7. This shows us that the tabernacle and temple were about more than containing God's presence as some sort of good luck charm or spiritual force. These dwelling places acknowledge the kingship of God. They were a reminder that God was in the midst of his people, ruling over and caring for them. After God led Israel into the promised land, the people consistently chose to move away from God and the clear direction he had laid out for them at Sinai. Instead, they chose to do whatever seemed good to them at the time. We read in the book of Judges, in those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. Judges 17 verse 6 and 21, or chapter 21 verse 25. Not only does this statement indicate that Israel ignored God's laws, it also suggests a solution. Israel needed a king. God was the rightful king of Israel, but they were unwilling to view him as such. It looked as if God's kingdom would never be fully established in Israel. It reminds me of when Ben wrote his project. It is the funniest thing to me. He came to me, he had a history project, and he had to pick a point in the Bible and he had to talk about it. And it wasn't history, what? Geography, that's what it was. And he picked Mount Sinai. And the story that he told was the significance of Mount Sinai, but he said that it's significant to him because it reminded him of all the choices that Israel made to have to wander in the desert for so many years. And I will never forget, I said, okay, well, tell me about your project, And he's like, well, they saw all these places, they went to Italy and Greece and, all these other places. And I looked at him and I said, son, what are you talking about? He goes, Mama, 40 years is a long time to wander. And I can't imagine they just wandered in a circle. And I go, okay, but the wilderness is not, in that moment I remember thinking, okay, well, the wilderness is not Italy and Greece and all these other places. But it got me to thinking how closed-minded we can be sometimes when God's trying to show us the bigger picture. And he's trying to say, hey, you're almost there, but this is what I'm trying to show you. And then it goes, well, I don't think that they did that, but they didn't wander in a circle. And 40 years is a long time, even though I'm about to be there. But it got to me, it's like, I've never really thought about, well, no, they didn't wander in a circle, but they didn't stay put either. And reading what I know now, it's just, I don't know, it just kind of blows my mind at how he'll show me things, and I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. And then I read a little bit more, and he's like, do you get it now? And I'm like, oh, got it. Okay, you're not talking. Okay, got it. Okay, we're back. I'm here. And then it just falls into place like it's supposed to. I don't know. It's
I
weird.
have something to say. I was just reading in Judges, and Judges is all about when Israel didn't have a king. And
Right.
they had, prophets and judges. And I saw past preppers on the story of the Levites' concubine being kidnapped. Well, they didn't kidnap her, but he gave them to her because they wanted to have relations with the Levite. And so he gave his concubine up to them, and they basically gang raped her and murdered her. And then he chopped her body up into 12 parts and sent it out throughout one part to each of the tribes. And the reason he did that was because Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin, had been corrupted. And they were the ones who raped this woman. Anyway, so it caused a war, and hundreds of thousands of people died. And so that we don't understand having a king, and God wanted to be their king. He didn't want them to have an earthly king. He wanted to be their king. And when you have a king, when you have some authority, then hopefully you're not going to have all this rebellion and this debauchery, And then and then when you move up into, Chronicles, that's showing you all the kings of Israel, and it's really interesting because, and I did a thing one time, you know, bad king, good king, yeah, well, there was only like 2 good kings that Israel ever had. But when they had a good king, or a king started out good, the people did good.
Mm-hmm.
And when they had a bad king,
People did
the
bad.
people did bad. Okay, so then you think, okay, what did we get under Biden? It started under Obama, but then when Biden came in, this transgender thing went off
The rails.
Okay, so I'm like, what is it? Why do people go bonkers when we have a bad president?
I never thought about it. Why do people do that? Why don't they stay? They know it's wrong, but they, I don't know why.
It's the same reason kids, we had this conversation in the car, Leah. It's the same reason Tim and I, obviously we haven't been the greatest as far as like under the weather this week a little bit, dealing with allergies and all that stuff. Well, our kids, the chores haven't changed one iota. But Tim didn't go to work on Friday because he was sick, because his turned into more than what we bargained for, I guess you could say. But his turned into him being a little bit under the weather, more than I was. Well, being skated a little bit, I got up and noticed there were still some dishes in the sink. Laundry's not quite where it's supposed to be. And it's the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, Tim and I, we don't rule with a, dictatorship, but it's still, the rules don't change, stuff doesn't change, but it's the same thing.
All right, well, let's ask Olivia.
Uh-oh. Yeah!
The only reason there was laundry on the table this morning is because the load that I put in the dryer last night, that was Daddy's clothes.
Who, chores wise, let's think about this. Chores wise, who is responsible?
Okay,
Now, this is the question. Let's get back to the
Listen,
question.
yeah,
Do you find that when your parents are sick, do you find that you're tempted not to keep up with chores? Be honest.
Yeah.
Yes. And why do you think that is?
because they're not watching the rules.
uh-huh.
So when Israel didn't have a king, then Benjamin just absolutely fell into sin and debauchery. And that's what the United States did under Biden. And now
Yeah.
Trump is reining it back in.
There's nobody to hold you accountable.
Nobody to hold you
Well, was it
accountable.
God their king?
Well, he wanted to be their king, but they didn't follow him.
No,
Okay, so he wanted that, but they weren't following him,
No.
and they didn't have a human king.
No. Now they had judges. The book of Judges is all about the judges before they were king, before Saul was king. And I think that was God's plan. He would be the king, but he'd have judges under, to.
like I always thought of it like a committee, even though that's not what it is. But
Yeah. But you have to have, see, it's just, we know Olivia, we love Olivia,
Yeah.
nothing's wrong with Olivia.
Well, it's kind of human nature.
That's what I was gonna say,
Like,
she's got a sin nature, just like the
Yes.
rest of us. So when the cat's away, the mice will play.
play,
When you
exactly.
and Jeff go away, things might not go as smooth in some areas. Not that we don't have intentions of
Yeah.
that, but sometimes not having the leader.
So we all have to come under some kind of, accountability.
Yes.
And I think, the church is our accountability.
Yes, to each other.
To each other and we need a safe place. Like if I'm struggling, I need a safe place to be able to tell y'all, hey, I'm struggling. And not put on a face and pretend I'm okay,
Well, so my apologetics class that I have for homeschool, it's teaching me how, like, we're going, so the book that I'm in currently is Demolishing Supposed Bible Contradictions by Ken Ham,
Mm.
and I've been reading ahead in it. I haven't been doing ahead in my schoolwork, but I have been reading it in
Mhm.
it. That way I can actually like think about it and
Mhm.
think about it. And one of the contradictions that it goes through is the one where, like what we're talking about isn't God Israel's king, but they needed an actual king to rule over them. That is one of the contradictions. And I was reading through that Friday, and I was like, okay, now that makes more sense looking at it. And I love reading that book because it's gone through, it goes through Genesis, it goes through everything. And it went through, where I'm at in my schoolwork, we just finished, there's one on Noah and his 3 sons, and their ages. And then we got, it doesn't stay in one place, though. That's one thing I don't like about the book, is it switches all the way around. Like, we started with Adam and Eve, and then we went to Cain and Abel, and then we went to Noah, and then now we're going back to Adam and Eve. And so I kind of wish it would stay in one place.
So let's address that before we move on. Is that a contradiction that God wanted to be their king and then he gave them a king? No.
No.
It says he heard their cries for a king.
Mm-hmm.
And he did punish them like a king.
Yes.
You know, they did good, they got good. They did bad, they got bad. And, but he said, it says that he heard their cries. And so he gave them what they wanted.
It's almost like they're saying, if you do something wrong, well, if you had gave me this, I wouldn't have done wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was always taught that you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes.
That's harsh.
You did win a lot of prizes with that, though, did you?
Yes. I'm not gonna say, I can't even lie about it. I got, yes. I messed around and found out a lot. A lot of times an animal taught me that lesson, but I don't think, I look at it like it wasn't any different. Sometimes I learn faster with an animal teaching me. Thank you.
Last week I had those turkeys, and I think it was Aunt Catherine. Y'all had an umbrella that y'all used to, because the turkeys were mean, and y'all used an umbrella to beat the turkeys with.
No, we didn't beat I got her a chicken one, and she would poof it out, and it would scare the turkey, and the turkey would run from it.
Catherine was scared to death of her.
My sisters, well, when we were younger, she was attacked by a mother hen. She had little baby chicks, and we were warned
Yeah.
that mother would get us.
Mhm.
And I went and played outside with the puppies and the cats. My sister thought she was bulletproof.
Yeah.
And we heard her scream, and we came back in the barn, and my sister's got this baby chick in her hand, and this mama hen is going to town on her head.
Oh,
And-
there's a prime
She played a
example.
stupid game and won a stupid prize.
She did.
There's a prime example.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we do that?
Well, my sister thought it was because it was.
Rebellion.
We think we're smarter.
Yeah. Well, my sister thought she was faster.
Mm-hmm.
She thought that that mother hen had like 20 babies. In that mama hen's defense, she had a lot of kids that she was watching at the same time. But that did not deter her.
She left the 90 and 9 to come after that one.
Quick.
They will do that though, chickens will do that.
And my sister, from that moment on,
Was scared.
no. Terrified.
Like
Jennifer.
phobia.
I'm talking
Okay,
like
traumatized her.
Yeah.
very traumatized. My sister would come wake me up in the morning. My job was to feed the large animals, the cows, the goats, the sheep, the horses, those things. And then her job was to go out every morning, because we would feed the chickens, the poultry, because it was chickens and ducks and turkeys and a little bit of everything. And so that she could go gather eggs and not get attacked, she would take a scoop of feed and throw it. So that everybody would go out and gather around the feed, hens and everybody included, and she could go in the hen house and not get attacked.
That's a smart idea.
One would think. Well, we had a turkey that was a little left of center. His elevator was not installed.
Oh.
And my mom kept him. He just was cute. And he was only, in my sister's defense, he was only mean to her. But he wasn't like trying to attack her. I really think he was in love with her. Because every time she would go out there, he would like puff out, but like trying to rein her in. Like to get her to go with him.
Yeah.
And my sister was terrified. So I got her one of those, it's a kid's umbrella, but she could puff it out and he would run.
Yeah, like to help defend yourself.
And it wouldn't hurt him, but it would
That
make
makes
her feel safe.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Well,
She
seen it one time and she thought she was like, does she beat? And I said, no, it's just to scare
Well,
her.
I'm glad to hear she didn't beat
No.
because that would have upset me for the rest of the day.
No, I was like, she did not beat the chickens with an umbrella.
They're not bright though. Turkeys aren't the brightest.
No, they're dumb.
You have to teach them to eat and drink when they come out of the egg.
So my mom always named all her Toms Tom. I know, how original. because he was left of center, we called him Fred. Because he just wasn't,
Yeah.
he wasn't very bright.
Up to par of Tom's.
He's just different. He's just different.
The elevator.
But like he would, we loved him.
Aw.
So he was Fred.
Yeah.
I don't know why my sister really hated him. I think it was because he really wanted love. That's all he wanted. She did not. So, okay. Israel takes a king. At first glance, it might seem like a good idea for Israel to be ruled by a human king. The period of the judges was chaotic, so it would make sense to establish a clear ruler who would lead and govern the people. Besides that, every nation that surrounded Israel had a king, so they must have felt conspicuous?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, conspicuous. All they had was a tent and an imperfect series of leaders whom God appointed to govern his people for a time. Wouldn't they be better off with a human king? This is the line of reasoning that led Israel to ask God for a normal king. Boy, does that sentence feel loaded. David wasn't normal. Read the account in 1 Samuel 8 and pay special attention to the warnings that God gave about what was really at stake with this decision. Okay, so 1 Samuel
8.
chapter 8. Well, it's only 22 verses. Okay, before we read, it says, read Samuel 1:8. What does this passage tell us about the significance of Israel's choosing to be ruled by a human king? So, in 1 Samuel 8, it says, and it came to pass when Samuel was old that he made his sons judges over Israel. I'm reading from a King James Version. Now the name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second, Abiah, and they were judges in Beersheba. And his sons walked not in his ways, but turned aside after lucre, and took bribes, and perverted judgment. Then all the elders of Israel gathered themselves together, and came to Samuel unto Ramah. and said unto him, Behold, thou art old, and thy sons walk not in thy ways. Now make us a king to judge us like all nations. Pause. I'm sorry, but if somebody approached me and they're asking me to do something, leading with the question, hey, we know you're old, is not the way to get what you want.
Yeah, you just keep that in mind.
Like, I read that and I was like, okay, they're asking for something, but they're gonna point out your flaws first. Like,
That's like the rudest thing you can do.
It is really rude.
so I don't know, that just, first thing that popped out, I couldn't help it. But the thing displeased Samuel. I agree, dude, it displeased me too. When they said, Give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed unto the Lord. And the Lord said unto Samuel, Hearken unto the voice of the people and all that they say unto thee. For they have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me, that I should not reign over them.
Now notice Samuel prayed to the Lord, but they didn't.
They didn't.
They're not seeking the Lord at all.
Well, they also called Samuel old, so just saying. According to all the works which they have done since the day that I brought them up out of Egypt, even unto this day, wherewith they have forsaken me, and served other gods, so do they also unto thee. Now therefore hearken unto their voice, howbeit yet protest solemnly unto them, and show them the manner of the king that shall reign over them. And Samuel told all the words of the Lord unto the people that asked of him a king. And he said, This will be the manner of the king that shall reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them for himself, for his chariots to be his horsemen, and some shall rule before his chariots.